as he got are going to be impactful.
Closer group.
Right.
You know, at Crest.
Hey, it's the.
There we go.
Are we on?
We are on, gentlemen.
Hey, there we are.
KMHS Sports. It took me a minute to
put my eyes on.
I had to get the dust off. You know, it's been how long has it been? November.
November.
Right. November, yeah.
Yep, the week after.
We did one or two.
Well, no, we did the
basketball games.
We did the coaches show. We did introduce the coaches
totally
show.
Totally different setup. So
yeah.
This is kind of our regular setup. We'll great to have Lamont Littlejohn, Greg Short. We've got the rest of the crew. We got our new member, Deanna. She's off camera. Mike's over there. I've got him over on two. There you go. You can wave now, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm excited and ready.
Well, I hope you can hear us good. I hope the stream's well. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's just go ahead and start. We left off Mountaineers, big loss at home, playoffs to what would become the state champion, East Lincoln. Right. We knew going into the season we were going to have a few holes to fill. Quarterback, O-line, middle linebacker. Question is, do you think we filled those positions?
From what I've seen, a little bit I've been able to watch at practice. I've been out a few times. I saw him yesterday. It looks like we're gelling pretty well. And I think, Drew, you'll probably speak to this a little more in a minute. It's just they're all learning a brand new offense and a brand new defense. And so that takes time. The good news is everybody's learning it. The young guys and the old guys, they're all learning it, but it's still that they're learning. But from what I could see, it looks like they're still trying to find who they really want to play quarterback. It looks like they're doing a 3-person rotation right now in early practices. Offensive line seems to be doing pretty well. And I think Jason has moved over to middle linebacker a little bit, either he or UNash. It looked like they were both playing it a little, and I could be wrong there, but we look pretty solid.
With Jason Melton.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I saw too when I went to the 7-on-7 Country Day. That's what they're playing. The 3 rotational quarterback, but they all 3 look good. I think the kid that transferred from East Mech, he was just released, I think, that week or that day.
Yes, he's been injured a little bit through camp.
Right.
Yes.
But, I like the way the ball came out with him. And, of course, we know TJ. We've seen him. And, of course, the new kid is Zolo.
Yeah. Cannon Zolo.
Yeah. So, looking good. O-line, I know we'll talk about it, but, like, when we look at the defensive side, of course, we only lost with AJ and Jay.
2 starters.
Basically.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited about the offense under Bolton and, of course, the defense under Coach Carroll. So I'm excited of how this thing is going to pan out this year.
Well, guys, it's odd that Kings Mountain has 4. It looks like we've got 4 quarterbacks right now. I don't think the coaching staff has made a decision which one is going to be the number 1 slot, but all 4 quarterbacks have some positive traits.
Right. I think it's 3. Is it 3?
Is it 3?
3.
Well, the JV quarterback is not
quarterback.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha. It looks like, from what I saw at the practice yesterday, the one they had down running the JV offense looks pretty solid.
Oh, yeah. I've heard a lot about him.
Yeah.
Is that Marlon Byers' son?
You may be right.
I think that's Marlon Byers. I heard he is a stud. So that's good for the future.
We've talked about some of the transfers we've had come in from other schools. Let's talk about something I've noticed is, in the past, Kings Mountain, even when we've had a good team or whatever, we show up to a school, we show up to our school, we're confident, we're classy, usually not a lot of trash talk. However, when we did see a lot of that from, I believe, East Lincoln last year when they came into John Gamble, it feels like Kings Mountain has a little bit of that swagger this year. I'm not saying, in a negative sense.
Right.
But it seems like, they have a positive swagger right now that I haven't seen one of our teams have lately.
And I think, Craig, that's to be expected. You have a new coaching staff, a new whole atmosphere, environment, ways of doing practice. What I've heard about practice is that it's nonstop. It's running from one set to another set. one location to another location. So all I've heard is positive that these guys are high key. The motors are high. They're flying everywhere out there. But I think it's to be expected when you have a new staff, new ideas, a new way of doing things. It pours well for a bit of a new excitement.
I agree with you, and I think a lot of it too is I love the senior group we had last year. I hate that we didn't finish better than we thought we would, but there were so many guys on the team last year that obviously are back this year. I really believe they feel like they've got more to prove.
Oh yeah,
I'm pretty certain they feel. I mean, talking to my son, that's what he tells me, but I've just seen it. They feel like they underachieved a little bit, that they left some stuff out there, and they feel the pressure. Not really. Well, that's the wrong word. They don't really feel pressure to perform, but they want to.
They want to,
and that. I think that's where that, as Drew talked about, the if you want to call it swagger, I think that's where it's coming from because, they know that they've got some talent. But the other thing I think they're aware of, and I believe this coaching staff has done a good job with it so far from what I can tell, is there's a humility factor in there too because they realize that even though they're good, these preseason rankings are coming out and they've got all these players back.
Right.
Everybody's gunning for them.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to maintain when it's expected. And
Exactly.
I know that sounds weird, but when you're expected to be really, really good,
you're on top. Yeah.
Right, and you're expected to be on top, the pressure is even tougher,
Right.
and you're going to get everybody's best shot. And
Right.
and I think that's part of what is driving them to have that attitude so far. And I think it'll bode well for us.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Another expression, I know you heard this too, Craig and Drew, is that they got a chip on their shoulder, and they do have something to prove. And I think again in the back of everyone's head, the seniors I've talked to, the people I've talked to, even being that 7-on-7, as they was dapping me up, hugging me, and say, "Hey, how you doing, Mr. Lil John?" Whatever. They was all doing this.
Yes.
Right. So they know the ultimate goal is win the state championship. Right. So I think that's what is on their mind, and I believe they believe they can cross that hurdle and get there.
Well, let's talk about, I've got a list of stuff to talk about, not necessarily in any particular order. There is a new way of parking and getting into the stadium this year. And I've got a graphic I can pull up of that. Basically, if you're a season ticket holder, with the park, I should say if you have a parking pass, if you bought a parking pass or you're handicapped, you enter John Gamble Stadium either right beside the junior high or the intermediate school, that little bus road that goes back from there. If you do not have a parking pass, doesn't matter if you're sitting on the home or visitor side, you enter the regular way.
Fight for road, correct?
Yes. Yep. The road that is between that parking lot and the new field house, that little section that would be right in front of the old field house, is going to be completely blocked off.
That's right.
You're not going to be able to use it. This is just to help with traffic and congestion getting in and getting out. Right. And also, if you have someone you're dropping off, they're going to be dropped off in front of the school. Because they used to have parents drop the kids off and they would drive all the way down to the new field house, turn around and come back out. They're not going to be able to do that. Right. Just drop them off in front of the school, and it's supposed to alleviate a lot of the areas. And those season tickets and those parking passes are still available. The only days they won't be available is August the 11th and 17th. But they started just past Monday, 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock. You can get them from the front office, $40 a person for a regular season football game, or $150 to get you in every Kings Mountain sport home game. $225 would get you 2 people. Students are $50 to get you into any sporting event, and the $30 parking pass for the Kings Mountain Touchdown Club that can also be purchased. Some other things that we've got going on, we've got rally towels for the first home game, the Shelby game. Rally towels for the first 500 into the stadium. Brittany Austin and company with Hewitt Realty and Ben Engel of OnQ Financial sponsoring those. So show up early, get your yellow rally towel so you can get ready for all that excitement. Plus, we've got T-shirts again this year with Lickety Loos and Dent Ambulance. They're going to sponsor some T-shirts. be throwing those out at different times during the game, and we've got our new. Some of you saw it at the Black and Gold game if you were there, and I believe the East Lincoln game. Our T-shirt gun will be launching those into the crowd, so that's kind of exciting as well. Our student halftime games are going to be back for this season again.
Good.
Dave Reed, Jason Mills. My mind went blank. Jason Mills will be putting together that. I thought that was great last year. I don't know if y'all.
Right.
I liked
enjoyed
it too.
I know if you watched the football games online, you didn't get to see any of that.
Right.
You had to show up to the games to see that. But I thought it was great.
Yeah, it added to it. I liked it a lot.
Right.
So that's back again for this year. We talked about the new way to get into the coaches show. The coaches show, I believe, is going to be on a different night. We used to do it on Monday nights around 6 o'clock, 6:30. That is going to be probably switched to Wednesday night about 6 o'clock. And, of course, our new host, Lord willing, will be Craig. And I'll mention this, Craig, he decided his whistle just wasn't as rusty as we thought it was. He started coaching again at Blacksburg High School, and he's coaching junior varsity.
Yes, well, I retired from North Carolina, so thank the good Lord I had time to retire.
Right.
And so I retired a little bit early.
Okay.
Got out of administration because I didn't like that anymore, and it was killing me.
Right.
And I got into Blacksburg. I'm going to teach there. And in late May, I met the football staff, head football coach, and he asked me would I help, and I told him I'd love to, because I'd love to work with young men again. But I also told him I had responsibilities for Kings Mountain, mainly my son, that I wanted to be there for Gabriel, and but I also had connections here. And some stuff changed since we did the coach introduction show, but I believe we're going to be able to work it out. I'm looking forward to it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We're looking forward to it. That's coming up Wednesday nights during the season. I guess first one would be 2 weeks from, or a week after this Wednesday. A week from this Wednesday.
Yeah, we're going to
be our first one.
We'll do it the week of the Shelby game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're filming our halftime shows again. We're getting those lined up.
Good.
I've reached out to a couple people to a new host for that segment. We may have guest hosts throughout the year, but Coach Brad Melton is going to be our number one guy at halftime.
Nice.
So we're looking forward to that. I think our first halftime guest is going to be Lexi Wright, current cheerleader at
Carolina.
UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay, good.
We've got Larry Sipe lined up. We're going to talk to him, and I know that we were reaching out to the volleyball coach. We want to get. They've had a lot of success lately. We want to get them involved as well.
Definitely.
So we're looking forward to that.
And I do believe we have a new girls basketball coach, head basketball coach.
David Morris, is it not?
Sure is.
David?
Yeah, we may want to get in touch with him and get him on as well.
Yes.
So that'd be cool.
Some of the themes, the student body, they usually dress up differently for each home game. I should have put a graphic up for this, but I didn't. Catawba Ridge, even though that is a scrimmage game, that's going to be a USA night. Shelby is blackout. Cox Mills neon. Burns is rodeo. Huss, well,
That's kind of never mind.
Okay.
Just keep moving. I'm
Yeah,
not
we keep it moving.
I'm about to say it.
Hunter Huss is white out. North Gaston is jersey night. Forest View is pajama night. We ought to jump in on that one.
I think we should.
Pajamas.
And then we definitely need a camera in the press box if we do that. Can we do that?
Forest View would be home this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Forest View would be
and
home
I
this
even
year,
think
yeah.
we need one on top to show what Mike's wearing when he's up there, because I think he'll wear footed pajamas with a flap in the back.
What you think about Mike? Footed?
Footed pajamas with a flap in the back. That's it.
Hey, it don't matter.
We'll zoom in.
We have fun.
That's right. Have fun and win.
That's right. That's right.
South Point
That's
will
what
be
it's
pink
about.
night. Stuart Kramer is ESPN night. I'm not sure what that.
I was going to say, what does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but it's ESPN night. Ashbrook is Camo night, and of course Crest is Halloween, right there close to
Halloween.
Halloween. Right.
So there you go. Before we move on to our schedule, I wanted to talk about one thing, guys. This kind of happened in the off season. The big matchup with Gaffney and Crest first year. I mean, is that a big game?
Oh, most definitely.
I think it is.
Yeah.
And, it's gone back and forth a couple of times,
It has been.
Lamont, about where they're going to play it.
Right.
At one time, they were going to play it at Gardner-Webb.
They were, yeah.
And the guys that I work with now at Blacksburg were telling me that just the other night that Gardner-Webb, I don't know if this is true, but I'm going by what they're saying. Gardner-Webb came back and said, yeah, come on and play, but we're going to keep all the money.
Right.
So there was going to be
wow.
and it would have been a fundraiser
Right.
because Crest is going to bring a lot of people and Gaffney will bring a lot of people.
Most
So
definitely.
the last, I didn't know that that's why it moved, but the last I heard, they're moving it back to Crest.
Yeah, it's at See It.
Of course, Crest
Right.
is building that beautiful theater.
Right.
So is Burns. They're building
Right.
a brand new theater, which is great for those
Parking
schools.
gonna be an issue,
But especially at Crest because it's
Yeah.
in that main, what used to be the student parking lot.
That's right.
And would have been like football parking.
right.
So Gaffney won't have trouble parking because they do have good visitor parking at
They
Crest.
do.
I will say that.
They do.
I mean,
because they have all those fields.
all
in the
that
back, yeah.
field over there behind the visitor side,
Right,
but
right.
I think it'll be packed. I think it'll be
gonna
one
be
of those
packed.
things where you'll see the banks will be covered and
Yeah.
on both sides, and it'll be interesting to see how they match up.
Well, I remember years ago when Kings Mountain played Gaffney.
Mm-hmm.
I remember them saying that the coaches from Gaffney come to visit, John Gamble because they'd never been there.
Right.
And they looked at our facilities and you looked at our home side and said, well, this is big enough for our fans. Where are y'all going to sit?
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah, and you'll see Friday night. I had Cherokee County Schools central office is literally in the parking lot of Gaffney High School's football stadium.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right there,
So
yeah.
I when I've been over there a couple of times doing paperwork, working for Cherokee County now, I've seen their stadium. Their stadium's unreal.
Oh, the reservation.
Yeah, the reservation looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a.
It's a college.
It's a small school.
I mean, your mid level. In fact, Limestone played there before. I think
For a long time.
Yeah, they got their field
until they've
now.
done stuff at their place. Yes.
Yeah. And so it's going to be amazing. It's the same night we play Shelby, of course.
Yes.
But as you know, Crest's vision side is
Not
small.
big.
And so Gaffney will probably fill that whole place up, and it may be the whole bowl.
I think so.
Yeah, because this game is hype.
what is a better game? If you're not a fan of either four schools and you've got the opportunity to go to see Kings Mountain and Shelby,
I
or
think
Gaffney and
for the
Crest.
for the tradition, Shelby and Kings Mountain tradition as a hype game is Gaffney and Crest. When you look at the hype,
well, you
right?
know Kings Mountain Shelby, you throw the records out. I mean,
Right.
it makes
It's
no
tradition.
difference.
It's a county rival, and I believe that each fan who loves their school would be at their school. But I know they've been upset. They was hoping that the Kings Mountain Shelby game is Friday and the Gaffney
That's
Crest game
another
on
thing.
Saturday.
Talked about it Saturday.
Because Cleveland County want to see both of these games. I've heard that as well, that they was hoping that it would work out like that, but it's not. Both of them is going to be on Friday.
I think as a football fan,
Yeah,
just strictly as football fan, I think Kings Mountain Shelby will be a good game.
it will be.
But I'm intrigued by the Gaffney Crest game. If I was just a standalone fan, I'm not encouraging anybody to not come to
Right,
our game.
right. But
Don't
it's
get
a
me
hype
wrong.
game, Doc.
But
Yeah.
if I'm just a regular, got no connection to anybody, just want to see a good football game,
Right.
I would be leaning to Kings Mountain Shelby because I'm biased. But I'm
Yeah.
telling you, the intrigue piece for Gaffney Crest is big because
It's big.
I think you're going to see several things that night. I mean, Gaffney is supposed to be really good again.
Right.
Of course, Crest should be good again. We'll talk more about them in a minute. That one's interesting.
It is.
That one's interesting for sure.
Right.
Well, let's move on to our schedule. Let's start with our first big scrimmage, Cleveland County Jamboree on Wednesday this night because of the
World Series.
Series.
World Series. Yeah.
It's on Wednesday this night. We play 6 o'clock game versus AC Reynolds. Now, last year AC Reynolds went 12-2, lost to Wayington in the 4th round. So very, very good squad. Is this a good matchup for us? First big scrimmage of the year.
And add a footnote, they were 4A last year. On their way, they also knocked off Chambers and was it Mallet Creek?
I think so.
And they petitioned the state and got moved down.
They're back down.
To 3A. So this could be a preview of a playoff game.
We've had some battles.
Second,
with them.
third round, and we have been there, done that. And so I think this would be a good
Yes.
test for us just to see where we are. I think everybody's excited to see the new offense and new defense. But I think it'd be a good test. And I think neither coach is going to show everything because there's potential, again, that this is a third, fourth round maybe a 5th round matchup, depending on how high they're ranked going into the playoffs.
I agree with you.
The other games at night, 7 o'clock is Crest versus Monroe. 8 o'clock is Burns versus South Point. And 9 o'clock is Shelby versus South Meck. There's a lot of talk about that 8 o'clock scrimmage, Burns and South Point. That's because, traditionally these scrimmages are very vanilla. You don't practice for the other team.
Right.
So if you don't practice to play South Point, and South Point's going to do what they do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's not a good scrimmage partner.
It might not be, but I'll say this: Coach Devine's pretty smart, and he coached at Shelby for many years, and
they played while he was there.
Did.
They played South Point,
and you know what South Point's going to run. Right. I mean, so
right.
I would argue to say that they've put in a triple option piece of practice and defensive practice, because, like you're saying, Drew, I mean, they want to at least have a chance to move the ball some, so they want to get the ball back. They're probably going to practice. I know whether or not they can execute, I don't know. I did on the Jamboree, Drew. I got a question from a couple of fans. I think I know this answer, but I thought I'd ask you. I've had a couple of fans ask me, were we planning on, or are we going to be able to stream those this year with it being at Shelby?
No, we are not planning to do the Shelby game. It's really a numbers thing with Shelby.
We're doing the Shelby game. We're not doing the Jamboree.
Jamboree.
That is correct.
Right,
that is correct. Right. We're not doing the Jamboree. We are trying to do the next Jamboree, which is Friday night at Gaffney. We're trying to do that one. I haven't been given the okay that we can do that one.
Okay.
But that's where we're going to. And so let's go to that next. The first time I remember us being invited or going to the McDonald's Kickoff Classic at Gaffney High School, the reservation. We're playing Catawba Ridge, Copperheads. School opened in 2019, but you wouldn't know it. They have a very strong program. They went 12-2 last season, finished second in their conference.
Coaches that have been there have been, I mean, they've, from what I've heard, like you've got here on the notes, they've been at places where they put some good stuff together. They've had some time at South Point Rock Hill with Coach Heron and the other guys.
They have, and they beat some good schools last year. Myers Park, Nations Ford, South Point Rock Hill, Riverside, North Augusta.
Right.
I mean, Catawba Ridge is a no-joke team to play.
Yeah.
Is this a good matchup?
It is.
I mean, is iron sharpen iron?
Oh, most definitely. Jaden Davis, who I think in this class is the number one quarterback. I know in North Carolina, who is commit to Michigan, I believe. He played there his sophomore year at Catawba Ridge before transferring to Providence Day. So I believe when you play a caliber team like a Catawba Ridge, who you know have athletes who transfer there, this is a no-brainer. This is a huge challenge for us and a good matchup for us. I think if you can get that AC Reynolds, just think about who we're playing. AC Reynolds in the Jamboree, Catawba Ridge. I mean, those are two good squads to be prepared to open up against Shelby that following Friday.
I'll tell you too. Yes, we've got a good team. We're excited about where we are and what we hope will be a good season. And I know that we all know people talk about Cleveland County football all the time. I mean, Cleveland County is just different. But I'm going to tell you, upstate South Carolina football is different.
It's different.
It's just different, and that's why it'll be a good test for us. But you know, I'm with Drew. And you guys. I'm not surprised that Catawba Ridge is doing well this quickly.
Right.
That whole area, you know, you're talking South Point, Gaffney, Catawba Ridge is being newer, but Burns, Dorman, Spartanburg, all these schools down there. There's a little bit of a difference. I don't want if it's an edge or I don't know what it is, but that's why I think it'll be a good test for us to see kind of how we measure up. I think size, athletically, speed.
Right.
I think we match up.
Oh, yeah.
But are we? You know, I hate to say it or ask this question, but are we as tough? Do we have that extra little toughness, it factor?
I think that's the key.
I do too. And I think it'll show us pretty quickly. I mean, AC Reynolds is going to be like that as well. They're good.
Right.
But there's just something different about that area of the world in football.
Right.
That upstate South Carolina area is different.
It's different. It's different.
Also going on next Friday, the first game is Blacksburg versus Westmeck at 6, and then us at 7. Chapman versus Shelby. Where's Chapman?
I don't know.
Oh no.
Chapman versus Shelby at 8, and then Gaffney versus Independence.
Yeah,
at
that's
9.
going to be a good game.
We'll get to see
Gaffney
Shelby
Independence.
twice,
Yes,
possibly
yes.
play. But tickets are at the gate.
Right.
The gates open at 4:30 there at the reservation in Gaffney. Tickets are $10 to get in. Should be if we can bear the heat until the sun goes down, should be a great time to go down to Gaffney.
Yeah.
Right.
And we can go eat at the it's the pizza place. What's the name of that pizza place? I'll think of it, but it's a great pizza place.
I want you to tell me because now I'm excited.
Right,
And,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bronco's good too. It's a Mexican restaurant.
I've been there.
Right too.
Been a while. All right, that's our 2 big scrimmages. So then we kick off with week number 1, which is Shelby at Kings Mountain. Battle of Buffalo Creek, 102nd time these 2 teams will be meeting. 21 wins, 74 losses, 7 ties against Shelby. We won the last 3 of 4 though. Last time we lost was in 2001, 37-14. Shelby went 7-5 last season, 5-1 in their conference. Went 1-4 in their non-conference schedule because Mike Wilbanks likes to schedule the toughest games he possibly can because he knows that the competition will fall a little bit when he gets to conference. So he's got to get those big teams in.
Yeah.
Shelby lost to Kings Mountain last season, 28-26. They lost to AC Reynolds, 45-21. Lost to Crest, 54-49. Beat High Brighton, 57-21. That's their non-conference schedule. They lost to Burns, 27-14, and then 42-0 in the second round of the playoffs. Anytime you can blank Shelby. I don't care what season it is. That's always good. Coach Wilbanks has actually faced Coach Herron before when he was with the South Point team. This was back in 2007 when South Point won that game 25-0.
Right.
Shelby lost that quarterback, Dalen Lee, 2,700 yards passing, another 114 yards on the ground. Lost 4 of their top receivers. They're returning most of their backfield, returning 3 defensive key players, Izzy Bridges, Drew Hollifield, and Jason McNeely. How you feel about this game?
Now, really, Isaiah Bridges is that receiver who is coming back. So he's more of the receiver type. I'm not sure if he played defense or not, but Isaiah Bridges.
I had him on stats as defense.
Defense, okay, yeah.
He had more stats on defense, I
Really?
guess.
Okay. Yeah, so Isaiah is they number 1 top receiver, and he's that number 6. He's lightning quick. I think that whoever the quarterback is at Shelby, that would be his number 1 target. Also, Eli Falls is another receiver that's coming back. He would get a lot of the balls as well, and you have others too that will. I think Camden McGill will be the 3rd receiver, and also I think Camden also plays defense as well. So, Shelby will reload. Remember in the middle school, I think the last 3, I think it was Burns, and now it's been Shelby who's been winning it. And so, Shelby always going to reload when it comes to, teams on varsity. They just may be a little younger this year.
Yeah.
I know Jaden Pierce is going to be huge in the middle. He's the big number, I think, 77. What I've seen, he had surgery. He has slimmed down a little bit. He has several D1 offers. He's Isaiah Best's brother, who's down. Yeah. So, Shelby's going to be good. They're going to be well coached, we know. But I like our chances against Shelby.
I do. And I'll tell you, I agree with everything you said about how they prepare and who they play and all that. And I actually talked to Coach Wilbanks at church. Mike's a good friend of all of ours and great guy, just super good guy. And I talked to him a while back about it, and he said they tried something different this year where they've at practice in the summer where they've they've made sure all of their coaches are coaching the guys. So they brought in their older guys early,
Gotcha.
and then they brought their younger guys in just right after them.
Right.
And he said he thought it was important to have all their coaches around their players. And so I think, and I agree with him, I think that's a great
key.
idea.
Yeah.
And I think what you'll see is you'll see them more together.
Yeah.
They'll be more unified.
Yeah.
And you're right. They've had a lot of success with their young guys from the middle school.
Right.
One thing you can always say about them, they're always going to be fast. They're going to
Yeah.
be well coached. They will hit you. They are aggressive.
Right.
It'll be a tough game.
And what scares me a little bit about Shelby, everybody, except their fans, everyone is writing them off.
Right.
Right? Because, I mean,
They're explosive.
everyone is writing Shelby off, stating that they'll be, again, last in the county. When you go into somebody like that and they got a chip on their shoulder and you going in like, well, they're not really that good, watch out. You know?
Right.
So I know Coach Herron and he will have our guys ready, not overlooking Shelby, say, hey, they still a beast. So,
Yes.
we got to take it to them.
Let's look at the second game of the season, August the 25th at Cox Mill. This will be the first time the Mountaineers have played the Chargers. The Chargers went 9-3, 5-1 in their conference, finished second there. Pretty good in the 4A. This is a good 4A team. They compete with Mooresville, Hickory Ridge, Lake Norman, A.L. Brown, South Iredale, West Cabarrus. They lost to Weddington in the second round of the 4A playoffs last year, 30-14. This will be, they have a new coach as well, new head coach, Brennan Holmes. He was the OC at Audrey Cale for the last 3 years, was at Providence Day, Hopewell, and Statesville High School. They've lost some too. They've lost their quarterback. He was 105 for 170 last year, a little over 1,400 yards passing, 19 TDs. Lost two of their top receivers, Kendall Harris and Zayon Evans. Returning in the backfield, Jeremiah Jones. He's a senior, 5'9", 175 pounds, 68 carries last year, 486 yards. And it looks like they're returning a lot of their defense too. So this is not an easy game. We don't have any easy game, but this is a rough non-conference game for us to go up and face Cox Mill.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that much about Cox Mill, but I love the fact that we're not playing any cupcakes.
Right. I don't know anything other than I see who they play in their conference, and
Right.
I know several things about those other teams. I know a lot about A.L. Brown, South Iredale,
Right.
and Mooresville. Hickory Ridge and West Cabarrus are newer schools. Lake Norman is somewhat newer, but I can tell you if they won 9 games in that conference, you can see they attracted some good coaching candidates. A little surprised if they lost their head coach. Maybe he went up to a bigger program or
Right.
moved to another state. But
I didn't look to see where he went.
I mean, it looks to me like they're pretty established and have done quite well because, as you said, they've not been around very long. It's not an old school.
Right.
But that's a tough 4A league. So yes, it'll be a challenge, and we'll be there, and could be their first home game. I don't know
It
for
could
sure,
be.
which would be a bigger environment.
And they look. I thought they looked good against Burns last year doing the Jamboree.
Yes.
But again, we know that's the first game's Jamboree is only
Right.
half. But they played Burns pretty solid. They put pressure on Burns' quarterback. Burns won that at the very end, like at a deep pass. But they were big. They were
Yeah.
big and they were quick. And you remember they had that they had a running back, and
I
I'm
do.
not sure if he's returning, but he really hit those holes hard. And so that's one thing we got to look at too if he's returning.
Right.
The third game of the season is another county rivalry matchup with Burns. Burns went 13-2 last year. One game away from making a championship. They got defeated by Reedsville 34-14 at Reedsville. Kings Mountain's won the last 7 out of 8 meetings, including last year's 27-0 victory. Last time we lost to Burns was in 2016. That was a 28-17 score. Last time we lost in Lawndale was in 2013. They beat us 20-15. Before we play them, they also play Forest View and they play Crest at home. They coming back from his senior year. Ben Mooney is their quarterback. Passed for over 3,300 yards last year, 37 touchdowns. Now, I will preface this. I should have said this before. The people that I have that are returning does not take into account if somebody has already left Burns and went somewhere else, or they've gotten somebody else to replace him. I don't have that information.
Right.
So I'm just going off what I know from last season, who should be there.
Yeah.
Even if he's really not there.
Well,
That's all I can do.
Well, we know
But-
Mooney's there.
Yeah, Mooney's
We
there.
know how good he is.
Yeah. I think he just committed to Gardner Webb.
He's a really good player.
He's a very good player. We shut him down last year, but don't think he doesn't have that in the back of his mind.
Yes.
He know he didn't have his best outing against us, and so look for him to have this game especially circled on his calendar. Also, Marshall McGowan. He's the big linebacker in the middle, so he'll be back as well. Remember, these guys just won the 2A state baseball.
Yes.
So, and both of those guys played on that team. So, they got some momentum coming off the baseball. They're state champions in baseball. But again, I'm just looking. What do they have up front? They was lacking last year. We really ate that up front. I don't know what they have. I know they lost a lot of their key skill players. They lost a lot of those players. And the question is, can they replace those skilled players that they lost?
Well, we were surprised last year when they came to John Gamble at the number that they had on their team, that they were low. I think we counted, Lamont, 27, 28 varsity players. I mean, that to me was really shocking because of the success that Coach Devine has had. Coach Devine's done a great job up there.
That's right.
And they've been consistently good. But I did hear that their numbers are up this year a little more.
It is, okay.
And so I think that they've obviously got a little more of a selection. But yes, that's going to be a really tough game. And I'll tell you why. Because that's a big rivalry with them and Crest.
It is.
If they somehow knock off Crest the week before they play us, it's big. But the thing we talked about this last year.
Did.
What helps us?
Yeah.
What helps us? Not that we might not be better than them, and I want to beat them, but they put a lot more energy into that Crest game than they do against us. It's not that they don't want to beat Kings Mountain, but they really want to beat
Crest. But they are sister schools.
Yes.
They built alike. They're going to have auditoriums that's going to look alike.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, everything.
And so everything looks alike. And that's what we talked about. We talked about the numbers last year. Remember pregame?
Yeah.
And then we talked about how will they respond coming off that big win against Crest.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, Burns would probably rather play Crest, Forest View, Kings Mountain, rather than having to play Crest and Kings Mountain back to back.
That's right.
Because that's tough.
That's
because
tough.
Being a county rival, you've got to get up 2 weeks. I mean, they got to get up for every game.
Right.
But county rivals are different because it's just going to take more out of you. And I think that benefits us even playing there. But they're definitely going to be good, and we're going to have to play hard.
Most definitely.
Well, if there's one school I think that has a chip on their shoulders that they haven't gotten the best of us in the last few years, it's been Burns.
I agree.
It's Burns.
So they're definitely. I guarantee. They're circling the Crest game, but they're looking at that. Kings Mountain
they
game
did.
too.
Because again, 27-0.
Yeah.
I mean, we whooped them. We had some. It was close there. We got to give it. It was close there, and then we had some turnovers, but we pretty much dominated that game from start to finish. And I know, and you guys know that when it comes to the county rivals, throw everything, the records and everything out the door. But I believe Ben Mooney and company will have that game circled because of the performance they gave last year.
Well, let's look at it like this before we move to the next game. They finished 13-2.
Yes.
Which means their second loss was in the playoffs to Reedsville.
Against Reedsville.
So that means Kings Mountain beat them, and they didn't lose again.
They didn't.
Until they lost to Reedsville.
That's right, and they beat Shelby twice.
They beat Shelby twice.
Right.
So you really need to think, like you're saying that you drew about them being ready for this game. They're definitely going to be ready to play us because that says a lot just looking at their conference or their overall record from last year.
That's right.
Number 4 is our open date. That's September the 8th. Who do you go see? Ashbrook at East Gaston, South Point at High Brighton, Cherryville at North Gaston, Olympic at Shelby, Hickory at Cox Mill, or Gaffney and Mallard Creek.
Well, I'm not going to go to Gaffney.
Now, I didn't put all the whole schedule up here, but I put some interesting games that you could possibly go see too.
What is it? 130.135 realty. What are all the things we say for the scoreboard?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I'm not going to Gaffney, Mallard Creek, because I'm not driving through Charlotte.
Exactly.
Mallard Creek's off of
Exactly.
Mallard Creek Church Road. That's way out there.
Right.
Ashbrook and East Gaston. That South Point High Brighton game might be interesting.
It may be.
Depends on how good High Brighton is.
That's what it depends on.
I'm going to be honest with you, Drew. Nothing strikes my fancy right there.
Right.
Well, you can take the night off.
We might take that night off.
Take the night off.
I might travel with the Wildcats that night. I'm not helping varsity, so maybe I'll go help them that night.
Right.
All right, let's look at number 5 for the September 15th. We travel to Hunter Huss. This will be the 20th meeting of the Mountaineers and the Huskies. We are 12-8 against Hunter Huss. First meeting was back in 1985. We have won the last 3 meetings. And the last loss was in 2019 when we lost 21-16 at Huss. I do remember that game.
I do too.
Huss went 3-7 last season, 2-5 in the Big South last year. Huss hasn't had a winning season since 2019, and that's when James McCoy left.
Right.
I believe he went to James Island, South Carolina.
He did. Yeah.
Before our game with the Huskies, they traveled to play Drawn. Then they traveled to High Brighton. They come home to face Providence before we get to them. What do we think about Huss? Now, the last few years, it was easy to write off Hunter Huss, but they've got some athletes.
They have.
I don't think this is a game you can overlook.
No, they have athletes. I'm not sure they're going to have enough for us, but they do have athletes over there. They have, I know, some defensive backs who I think have got several D1 offers. But collectively as a squad, I'm not sure if they have it. Now, they're going to have size. Remember, for last year, they took the opening kickoff. Remember, that was homecoming, so we had a lot of festivities, and they took the opening kickoff, and the guy who took it back, well, we don't have to worry about him because he's a Mountaineer. So I was wondering if you were going to say that. So we don't have to worry about that guy, so he's with us now. So, but again, I think we can know this is conference. We cannot overlook Huss. Those coaches are going to have them ready. And one thing, there's not going to be any easy nights for us because I know when the state rankings come out, we're going to be in the top 3, if not top 1 or 2 of the state, along with Crest. And we won't have any easy target. The target is even bigger on our chest now because all the hype around us with new coaching staff and things of that nature. So I think, Huss going to put up a fight. I'm not sure if they're going to have enough.
Go ahead, Drew.
Well, let me stop you there then. You brought up another topic I wanted to ask you about. Do we have too much hype on us? I mean, we've got a new coaching staff.
Yep.
Probably bar none the best coaching staff in the state of North Carolina.
Right.
However, it is a new coaching staff.
It's a new staff.
Philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
New scheme. New plan. We've got a lot of great players. We have some great athletes.
Yep.
But it's still a new system.
It's a new system.
And
Two of them.
They've got us ranked number 1 in 3A
Offensive.
in several polls, and
yeah, it's us and Crest on every poll I've looked at
in the Charlotte area. Out of 4A and 3A
all
put together.
Yeah.
I mean, is the bar too high?
I believe Coach Herron, Coach Bolton, and Coach Carroll will let you know that temper your expectations for the first few games.
Yes.
Because there will be bumps in the road. That's why I think the Jamboree and us playing Catawba and Gaffney, that's going to be key for us. But I believe that as we go through the preseason with Shelby, Cox Mill, and Burns, hopefully by the time we get to Huss, we've ironed out those wrinkles. Because we want to be hitting our stride. I think at least mid-October, we want to be hitting that stride. But I think they'd be the first one to tell you we're going to have bumps in the road. It's a new system. It's an up-tempo system. The whole defense has changed, the scheme-wise. But I believe, too, we have tempered the hype a lot. I hadn't seen a lot of videos and things. I mean, they took some pictures and things of that nature. But I believe Coach Herron and Coach Bolton and Coach Carroll, those guys are really keeping the hype down. Now, again, you can't control what other people are saying. But I really believe that these guys are ready. Like we said earlier, they got a chip on their shoulder. They understand the mission. They just can't get too, as we say, big-headed about it. So I'm not sure if the hype is too much. I think it's expected for us to win. Here's the thing. Can we get past the 4th round? Can we get past the 5th round? Can we make it to the state championship? I think that's where everybody, even Coach Herron, will talk about that. Like, guys, I understand where you want to get. I understand where you hadn't been. I understand what you want. And so that's the whole thing is, can we start out, build momentum, keep it going, and don't have too many setbacks?
And I think I agree with everything you just said. And to the point of the question, I believe if they could not have the hype as coaches, they wouldn't have it. Exactly. Because it can be a distraction.
Yeah.
I agree that they've done a good job in tempering it.
Yeah.
But I think that if they could go into the season flying under the radar, so to speak, they would take it.
They would take it.
Because they also know how tough it is when everybody's trying to get you, number one. And number two, by putting in a brand new offense and a brand new defense and learning it. And
new personnel.
Yes.
You got new quarterback, that type of thing. So
and all this is a huge learning curve.
Yes.
It is.
Yes, I agree.
It is.
You got returning players from last year. They just had to scrap what they already knew.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a huge learning curve.
It is. It is.
For everybody.
Well, I will say this. Traditionally, the defense is ahead of the offense.
Right.
And I believe our defense is strong enough to keep us in any ball game.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I do believe
until
that.
the offense can get that rhythm, until the offense can learn that system and be tough enough to, you know,
and
put the points
that's
on
been
the
our
board.
DNA for past several years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the defense always have been ahead of us, and I think now that listen, we have some beats coming back. We have experience coming back. I mean, we are returning 9, and again, you have players that you can plug in.
Yes.
You have transfers on the other side where you can shift now some people to fill a AJ Richardson spot, a Jake Lord spot. You know, I'm excited. Again, I'm excited about the high profile offense, but I'm excited about the schemes of that defense.
I am too.
Let's move on to the next game. This is the 6th game, September 22nd, North Gaston and Kings Mountain. First game was in 1973. This will be the 41st time we've met North Gaston. We are 36-3-2. Last year we won 56-0. We have outscored North Gaston in the last 4 games, 232-0.
They haven't scored on us in 4 games. I mean, 4 years.
No. The last time that the Wildcats scored on us was in 2018, and they put 6 on the board. We won that 56-6. The last time we lost to North Gaston was in '93 under Coach Dennis Hicks. I'm sure I've said that a couple times. And I'm sure Coach Hicks, if he ever sees this, why do you keep got to bring that up? Why you got to bring that up? The last time North Gaston has had a winning season was in 2007 under Coach Bruce Clark, and they played for the championship that year. Before we play the Wildcats, they will be at East Gaston. Then they'll stay home to play Bessemer City, Cherryville, and then Forest View before they come to John Gamble. Thoughts?
It may be another 0 on their side this year.
I can tell you from experience, it is a lot easier to ruin a program than it is to build one.
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer.
Right.
How do you get North Gaston in competition with the Big South?
I mean, Craig, how was you was the principal there last year. How was WC Friday, and did they have any players that's?
I mean, WC is going to send them a few. The problem is that, you know, in the last 2 years they've had to play what little bit WC has got. I mean, they also get a few from Holbrook. It's a weird situation.
Gotcha.
Where Holbrook sends them a little bit too.
I think you were saying something about that last year. Yeah.
But we said this back then. You know, Coach Rothwell's a good guy. His brother worked for me at WC Friday. The problem is they don't have games on their schedule early on that are winnable.
Right.
And they've got to, when you're rebuilding like that, you've got to get games on there you can win or be competitive in.
Right.
Now, they may be competitive against Cherryville. I think Bessemer's going to be tough because Shane's going to have them in really good shape.
Yeah.
East is kind of a toss-up. I don't know what they're going to be like this coming year, but they just have a tough time, and they get into the conference and they struggle, and they're not getting a lot from their middle school feeders, and the middle school feeder programs are not the one main one that feeds them in WC Friday, and then a little bit from Holbrook. Now Holbrook's really good.
Oh yeah,
but they don't get what they need. I mean, when you're seeing. Belmont is feeding South Point, and it's usually Belmont and Holbrook or Belmont and Southwest, who are in the championship each year.
Southwest mostly goes to
Southwest
Huss,
goes to Huss, and most of them. And so it's North Gaston's in a tough spot, and that's why I think in order to try to rebuild, Coach Rothwell would need to redo his schedule, but he's not. I mean, it's tough, and I'm with you. That's at our place too. It could get ugly fast, and I hate it because I want us to have some competition.
That's right.
And
that's our 5th game. We getting our feet under.
We could rest some. We might be able to rest some people that night. I hate to say it, but it could be the way.
It could be a running clock first quarter, second quarter.
Yeah.
7th game of the season, September 29th, Forest View at Kings Mountain. 21st meeting between the Jaguars and the Mountaineers. We are 13-8 against the Jaguars, including a 48-7 win last year. We've won the last 7 meetings. Last time we lost was in 2016. It was a 28-0 loss. Before they play us, they'll be at Burns. They'll have East Lincoln at Forest View. Freedom and North Gaston will be away, and then they'll have Ashbrook at home before we play them. They're returning some. They're returning some stars. Their quarterback is returning. Jackson Hill should return. He was 119 of 230 with a little over 1,200 passing yards last year. They'll have Christian Holland back in the backfield. He had 214 carries, 10 touchdowns last year. And it looked like they will return a good, strong receiving core. The big loss is going to be on defense, which is Nathaniel Aguilar, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
they'll miss him on defense.
I remember him.
He was a terror.
He was
on that defensive line for them, so they'll definitely miss him. So that is the 7th game, Forest View at Kings Mountain.
That's a toss-up usually with them. I mean,
they're well coached.
They are, and we've had good success with them lately. But Forest View's one of those teams that, 2 years ago they were loaded.
They were,
and they came over here, and we had our hands full.
Sure did.
And last year we got them when they were down a little bit. It's hard to say. I don't know what Coach Medlin's got. I've not heard a lot about them, but if they win some of those early games, they could be in the mix.
The momentum.
I'm anxious to see what they do against East Lincoln.
But
that one's going to be an interesting game in that second week. I think that's going to be a good measurement for both of them to see what they have.
Yeah.
From the time that I've seen Forest View and Kings Mountain play, Forest View, they can get in that ball game and make you wonder what's going on for a minute there, and then lose their momentum.
Yeah.
Right. But they've always been very tough.
Well, I remember, Mike. That last loss, the 28-0 loss. If I'm remembering correctly, was we lost at John Gamble. And had to turn around and play them the first week of the playoffs, and we beat them.
Wow.
And I remember, if I'm remembering correctly,
we beat them at their place.
We beat them at their place.
That's right, I remember.
If I remember correctly, we were worried because we had played so poorly.
Yeah.
And then you're running the first round of the playoffs, and then we managed to win, but.
Right.
You're right. It depends on it's hard to say with them.
Right.
They are definitely an anomaly of a team.
Right. I agree.
Don't sweep them under the rug.
No.
Right.
No. Don't look past them.
Most definitely.
Let's go to the 8th game of the season, October the 6th at South Point. Be the 48th meeting. We started playing them back in '69. We are 17-31 against the Red Raiders, but we've won the last 2. We beat South Point last season 31-20. They went on to make it to the 5th round. They lost to East Lincoln 28-25 last year. Lineberger Stadium, a very hard place to play. I don't know if you gentlemen saw, and we can debate that at another time. They put out there the best stadiums of North Carolina, and we were somewhere in the high teens, 14, 15, 18, I can't remember. And then Lineberger Stadium was ahead of us, which I had fought with, but we'll debate that another time.
Exactly.
But regardless, Lineberger Stadium is a tough place to play. Their fans, their crowd, their team makes it a hard place anytime we're there.
Yeah.
And I do have word, we have been given okay to broadcast that.
Really?
So we may
Remember
get
2 years
let's
ago.
let's yank the carpet back up.
So that's big.
We may get to broadcast that game.
You know what I think helped us? The South Point fan in Saudi Arabia from last year. You remember that? He was watching us in Saudi Arabia.
Sure did.
But I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
I thought they wouldn't let us.
Remember 2 years ago they didn't.
Oh yes, sir.
Before we play them, they travel to Lincolnton, Charlotte Christian, and High Brighton. Then they've got Stuart Kramer at home for their back on the road play Hunter Huss, and they've got Crest right before us.
Ooh.
So,
yeah. See, that's
and it's always been a big game for us. You know, South Point, Crest, Kings Mountain's been the top three.
Right.
So this is a definitely must win if you want that crown as a conference championship.
I bet you South Point would much rather have Crest than have like a North Gaston in between and then Kings
Most
Mountain.
definitely.
Because again, you know, for us, they're coming off and what they would say is more of a rival against Crest than Kings Mountain.
Oh, from recent, yes,
yeah, most definitely.
yes.
And so I think they have to travel to Crest.
Yes.
And the way they beat Crest, I think was the third round last year, you know, and that's going to be some hype there. So, you know, they're going to put a lot in that game and then have to get back up to play us at their place. But you know the old saying, you already down 7-0 when you get off the bus.
And I'll tell you, that Crest game for them,
Yeah.
you know, the new defensive coordinator at Crest is Daryl Wilson,
Yep.
who left us.
Yep.
And Daryl has shut South Point down.
Daryl knows
He
South
knows how
Point
to-
like the back
He
of his hand.
does. He shut them down the last 2 years.
Right.
That score 31-20 last year,
Yeah,
we
Coach
all
Wilson,
know,
I mean,
is
yeah.
not indicative
Right.
of what. I mean, it was 31-6, and they got too late cheap. They did an
Yeah,
onside
yeah,
kick
yeah.
and threw. I mean,
And-
we know there was
and-
pass
and they
interference
passed
in
interference
the last two
year,
scores,
yeah.
but it's okay.
But Coach Wilson has done a remarkable
He
job
has.
of shutting down that red ball. And I know that's one thing that Crest loves that they have in him there. And I think he's going to put in that same pedigree and to shut them down again this year.
All right, let's move on. Week 9 is Kings Mountain. It's October 13th. Stuart Kramer home to face the Mountaineers. This is going to be our homecoming, October 13th. Circle that. It's also Friday the 13th. So make of that what you will of it. This is our 7th meeting between Stuart Kramer and the Mountaineers. We are 6-0. Haven't lost to the Storm yet. Last year was a 63-24 victory. They lost. They made it to the playoffs last year. They lost to West Charlotte 40-13. And this is actually the second time that they played West Charlotte in the playoffs, and they got beat twice by them. Before we play them, they play at East Lincoln and Chase. Then they're home to face East Gaston. Back on the road for South Point and Crest. Then they have a homestand with Huss and Ashbrook. So they get us after they play South Point and Crest.
Well, we've got
now I'll say this. Stuart Kramer has always been that school that I thought every year made that little improvement.
Yeah.
And made that little improvement. And the last 3 or 4 years, they've kind of plateaued and haven't risen to the top 3. They've been right there, you know, with Ashbrook and trying to break, you know, the top 3 between us, South Point, and Crest.
And I've always thought they had the personnel. You know, the year before last and coming out that COVID season in that fall of 21, they had some dudes on that squad. And of course, we know the quarterback that I love to Rockamore, right? Justin Rockamore, he's gone now. But they had the personnel. I just had a problem with their play calling, the way they used their athletes. Well, I don't know how they, you know, I know IJV, I think, put a whooping on them there or at home. No, at home. Yeah. And so I don't see, the only thing I can see is us getting sidetracked by homecoming festivities and getting back on track, maybe starting out slow in the first quarter because it's homecoming. But I don't see a threat there unless we just have a terrible game.
I agree with you. I'll say this, and I might make some people mad when I say it, but I think Stuart Kramer has underachieved.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I think like what you said, they've had great personnel.
Oh, man, I'm telling
2
you.
years ago at Kings Mountain, we had our absolute hands full.
Oh, yeah.
And we had we got everything we wanted and more from them.
And they was favorites coming into the game.
Yes, they were, and we were lucky to get out of there with a win.
Right.
And I'm with Drew. I think they've plateaued. They've not done well with what they have because I've also seen their middle school team, which is Cramerton Middle School, the last 2 years, and they've got some good-looking kids on those teams. And I just – you say what you will. I might make some Stuart Kramer fans mad. Doubt any of them are watching. But if they are, I'm sorry. I just think you've underachieved. I don't think they've done well with what they have.
They've had the personnel. We've said that for the last 2 years.
And I think because of that is the reason why we've gotten a couple of their players.
Correct.
Just saying.
Let's move on to week 10, October 20th at Ashbrook. So we'll be back up to face the Green Wave. 16th time we faced them. They were 9-7. Oh no, we are 9-7 facing Ashbrook, including a 48-14 win last season. Last time that Ashbrook has been contention for the conference title was in 2013. They went 9-4, 5-1 in the conference. Finished second place, right below South Point. That's when they were in that 2A, 3A split conference. We were not in the conference with them then. They were in that split conference with South Point, Huss, Forest View, East Gaston, North Gaston, Lake Norman, Charter, Stuart Kramer. The best Ashbrook has finished in the Big South is the COVID year, 2020. They finished third with a 4-2 record, but that was before South Point joined the Big South. They are returning some athletes, and I don't want to make people mad either. Ashbrook is a little bit like you were describing
Stuart
Kramer. On paper, Ashbrook should be world beaters.
I agree with you.
But when it comes to field, something happens, and I don't know,
They're returning a lot, I believe, and they're going to be big. I know they gave our JV a tough time down there last year. I think our JV only won by 1 touchdown. I'm not sure if it was 7-0 or 14-7, but I think it came down to a last play. Of course, we had them at, I think it was senior night last year, and we really put a whooping on them.
Yeah.
But when you see those guys warming up, when you see those guys lining up, those guys are huge, and I think they have underachieved as well. But this game, I believe we'll win the game, but I just don't want us to be looking ahead to that next game, especially if we're still undefeated at this point and somehow Crest knocks off Gaffney and they're undefeated. I don't want us to be looking past Ashbrook, knowing that we got to come home to play Crest. That's the only thing I worry about.
I agree with
this
you.
Game.
I think I agree with everything you said and what Drew said, and I'll kind of piggyback Drew in that I compare Ashbrook and Hunter Huss a lot.
Right.
The difference is I think Hunter Huss has done well. There have been years where Hunter Huss has not really been talented, but they've still been a little bit. Well. They've been pretty competitive.
Right.
I will say I thought last year when we played them at our place, Gash runs that open the kickoff back, and we were like, whoa.
Oh, yep.
But just the way they carried themselves, the way they played, the way they got after it, you could tell the coach really had them in check.
Right.
I think that Huss has done well with what they have, and I think Ashbrook is like Stuart Kramer. I think Ashbrook is more talented than Stuart Kramer.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think they know how to harness all that. And that's
it's like they gave up. You know, when we punched them in the mouth a little bit at that senior night, they actually gave up.
I've always been disappointed because Ashbrook for a long time had a lot of tradition. They were good many years. They've won a state championship.
They sure have. Yeah.
They've done
3A and 4A.
Yes, and both. And they don't. They don't have any of that advertised. They don't. They don't really keep up their facility that great.
No, they don't.
Little things like that to me.
Yeah.
That also makes their team probably feel the way like you just said, Lamont. Like maybe they don't care, and
there's no pride in it,
right?
Why don't you have that banner of a state champ? Why don't you have monuments out there that stating that? I mean, if you don't know, you wouldn't know they've
You'd
won
never
a
know
state
they've done
championship in 3 and 4
You
year
never know
football.
they've done it.
You never
Yeah.
know.
Well, I guarantee you, when Kings Mountain wins its title, there's probably going to be a 9-story.
It'll be everywhere.
It's going to be everywhere.
It'll be everywhere.
We'll make sure.
You come in and lead both
It'll be everywhere.
We
Yeah.
will make sure, because guess what? People remind us all the time that we're ringless, but we'll make sure.
All right, let's move on to the Week 11, which is our number 10th game between Crest. Now, traditionally, this has been for the conference championship. We don't know yet if that's going to be the case or not.
Right.
But traditionally, that's been the case. That's October the 27th. It's senior night, 49th meeting between the two teams. Not the best overall record, 16-31-2, including our last big win, 35-20 last year. We won the last 5 out of 7 against the Chargers. Last season, they went 9-4, 5-2 in the Big South. Finished third behind South Point, went to the third round of the playoffs, got put out by South Point 20-21. Crest missed PAT in the third, and in all fourth, no scoring. It was just all defense. Speaking of defense, they do gather, we mentioned it, they do get Darrell Wilson, the former Kings Mountain defensive coordinator. So they've got a lot of talent at Crest returning. Husky should be back. Carson should be back in the backfield. I did hear their big defensive player that lost him in the spring ball, Des Pointer. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's injury or what it was, but I've heard that they lost him in spring.
They've also got Green back, don't they?
Yeah, they have Green. Yeah, that's the main thing. Green is, I think he has D1 offers from Alabama. I think his top 3 is Alabama, Michigan State, and North Carolina. And so, we did well. Again, the former defense coordinator, Coach Wilson, did well. Again, shut him down last year. But, Green is back. He's going to be lethal, but he also have other players as well that's going to complement him. One name to look out for is, of course, A.J. Adams. He plays both sides of the ball, but I think they got so many skill positions, they may not have to play that much of both sides of the ball. The only thing for me is, what do they have up front? What does the trenches look like? But make no mistake about it, Crest is going to be loaded.
Well, we talked about this off air before we came on. They've gotten some transfers as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm interested to see if some of those transfers were linemen. I don't think they were very good up front last year.
Right.
And that's not to throw them under the bus. I just don't think they were.
I believe their coaches would tell you that.
Yeah, I think we were better than them up front, which is what allowed us to win the game. And of course, we got them early. We got some breaks against them. They were a really good team.
Yeah, we was
probably
up 21-0.
We were before they knew it. And in that playoff game with South Point, they probably should have beaten South Point.
They should have beat South Point.
And I think, if I remember correctly, I think Coach Sosaby got tossed from that game,
Yeah.
and he had the right to. I mean, it was controversial.
They said they had some terrible calls.
Terrible calls. It was at Lineberger,
Yeah,
if you
it
remember,
was. It
like
sure
Drew
was.
talked about earlier. But that's going to be interesting because I want to see kind of how they go through the season.
Right.
I don't think the conference will be too hard for them aside from South Point, and then they play us.
Right.
But the early season games
They had a
tough.
slow start last year.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They
Right.
did.
They did.
Probably also should have lost to Shelby.
They should have.
Shelby was up 20 points or something.
21-24-0.
And they lost late.
Man, they had it was
Shelby lost late.
overtime. It was overtime, and it was
Yeah.
like, they were still playing it. I think it was something 11 o'clock.
Right.
Because we was announcing that how they, we said, Shelby finally getting their first win.
Yeah.
Then we turn around, and man, it's like 42-42.
Yeah.
It's like, and they were still playing. So that was, I think that'll go down one of the best games in the history of high school football.
Yeah, and I say what you will about Coach Sosaby. I don't know him personally. I've never met him. I've just heard about him and watched him coach.
Right.
I gather, he is a good coach. He was very good at Hendersonville.
Yeah.
He, I'm sure, as all good coaches do, he went out and tried to find pieces, especially on his coaching staff, to fix where he felt like he was weak.
Right.
And then if kids move in and they're at his school and they help in those places, he's going to use them. So it's going to be neat to see. And Crest has a tradition.
They do.
They beat our JV last year.
They do.
In a very tight game.
It was a blowout.
Oh, it was.
Sure
That's right. Because 2 years ago it was a tight game and we beat them.
Yeah, but it was a blowout last year, and I think our JV just felt. That was probably the worst game we had played all year. like us in East Lincoln, but it was the worst game played all year. And Crest just got some good breaks, and they really whooped us last year.
Let's talk about tradition. That's the season. That's the entire season. There is a new tradition that looks like the Mountaineers are going to start, and you mentioned it before with the sign behind my head, Mountaineer Boulevard.
Okay.
They helped put together a new way for Kings Mountain to enter the stadium.
Oh, excellent.
I mean, you might have seen some of the videos online.
Yeah, look like Clemson coming down, right?
A little bit. I
love it. I love it.
So there's a new coaching staff, new traditions.
Right.
There's also, if I saw correctly the other day when I was walking my little dog, there's a rock up there now.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure there is.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how. I mean, it looks like they've set a boulder up there as well. I don't know what they're going to do with it. They're going to stand on it, run past it, rub it. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's up there beside Mountaineer Boulevard.
Man,
and Gabriel,
it's exciting.
My son actually told me, Drew, that's what they were calling it. So your sign came in handy in the pictures.
Mountaineer Boulevard.
Well, they can't have it.
Yeah, I know you're not going to give it to them.
It's mine.
Yeah, that's yours.
It's going to be featured in the background of the coaches show, so you'll get to see it again. I guarantee you.
I like it. But didn't Butler's help put it down? Butler's Landscape.
They did. They
helped
did.
put it-
I believe they came in and helped them add that. So.
Butler's is one of the many sponsors that we're just thankful for. They help us a lot.
Well, guys, I just wanted to get together and talk about the season a little bit and talk about some new things. I know the town's excited.
Right.
I hope we manage our expectations a little bit, you know, but it should be a good season.
Yeah.
Should be great to watch. Come out on Friday nights, whether it be John Gamble or we have to drive to Cox Mill. We'll find a restaurant to eat between here and there.
Right.
We'll if you can't make it, and please try to make it. If you can't make it, we'll try to cover the games they'll let us cover. Sometimes we don't know until 2 or 3 days before the game. We get the okay, you can come, or you can't come. And we're trying to do the jamboree, the McDonald's football classic in Gaffney with us next Friday night. So we'll let you know if we on social media if we get that.
Drew, on that one, would we be able to stream? Like, would we be able to also show the Shelby game, or would it just be our game?
I don't know.
I just was curious if we might do it because people up here might want to see it.
Because we'll be the only 2 Cleveland County schools there, right?
Because Gaffney plays last.
Right.
And if we can stay on there, we might show Gaffney because they're playing Crest.
I'm sure Crest would
I'm just saying, I mean, if we
I'm sure Crest would be down there.
It would be.
Yeah. Unless Crest is in the jamboree that Friday, I'm sure Crest would be in the stands that Friday.
I agree.
I want you to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. That helps us out. And I do want to mention, I had it in my opening notes, but somehow did not mention it. Kings Mountain Touchdown Club, first of all, we want you to be a member. Log on to kingsmountaintouchdownclub.com. Actually, it's kmtouchdownclub.com, I think. But anyway, log on to the website. It'll tell you exactly how to become a member. You can do it on the website, or you can call the phone number it gives you to call. We want you to be a part of our tradition here at Kings Mountain. Also, the Touchdown Club has got their 10th annual auction coming up on the, I say 10th annual, I don't know how many annuals. The auction's through the 10th through the 12th.
It's happening again.
At 6 o'clock. 10th through the 12th of this month, 6 o'clock. Go to social media. We've got it all over social media. The website, you can click on it. You can see all the auction items that are for sale. Great trips, golf packages,
yes,
collectibles, all kinds of stuff. And I hear my dogs and children.
I hear them
upstairs.
Yeah,
I don't know if you hear that.
They've held on a long time.
long enough, and I've held you guys long enough. Guys, thank you so much for coming in. We'll try to get back to get in the swing of things. We've got some new things happening with us this season, adding some more cameras, and hopefully we can make it a great experience. But
make sure you introduce our new crew too, who we're going to have helping us out.
Yeah, they've sat patiently over here in these chairs.
Well, I can't get them all on camera. I can get Mike over there. Mike, of course, he runs one of the cameras up top. We've got Tommy Pardo.
Tommy Pardo.
Yeah, he's going to be with us. He was kind of with us last year, but I'm actually going to give him responsibilities this year.
Right.
So he's going to run a camera, and then Diana Doggett. I see. You
were close.
I was close. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Deanna Doggett, not Diana Doggett. If Diana Doggett is out there and wants to work for us, though, please apply.
She's going to help with our field camera.
Good.
Jeff has signed back on. Hopefully, we'll have him on
Good.
sideline again
Good.
on the mic.
Oh yeah, we had to give him a shout out. He told me at church today, give him a shout out because
Right.
he's moving his girls back into school today.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
safe trips for
man.
that. Hope that all went well, and we love you, Jeff. We'll see
Right.
you on Fridays.
And that's it, guys. Thank you so much. We'll call it quits for now, and we'll see you at
Wednesday at the
we'll see
Jamboree.
you Wednesday at Jamboree. We won't cover it, but we'll see you there.
Yeah.
I have a hard time sitting on Shelby side, but if the Shelby side's shaded, that's where
Definitely, because it's a
We're
6
just
o'clock
on the
game.
50-yard line.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about that?
Oh, I'm just looking for the shade. If the home side's shaded, that's where I'm going to be.
I'll be honest,
If the visitor side's shaded, that's where I'm going.
and
to
you
be.
know too.
Craig and I just take 50-yard line.
We'll take the
And
50.
handle it
50,
from
yeah.
there.
We'll take the 50. Hey, y'all know too that it's easier to get in on the visitor side with the parking because of the
It
World
is.
Series.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and
Right.
get there early.
Yes.
Yeah.